Welcome to another episode of the Bobcast. We begin this week with Frostburg State football coach DeLane Fitzgerald. Football, the undefeated NJAC champions, a 38-35 win over Salisbury in overtime, the third consecutive postseason appearance, second straight NCAA playoff appearance. The Bobcats will host Western New England this Saturday, noon start in Bobcat Stadium. And Coach, let's start with Salisbury, a game that lived up to the hype, the final Regents Cup, an NJAC championship on the line. What did you just make of the football game that your team played on Saturday?
It's epic, right?
Yes.
Is that the word? Instant classic. I thought both teams played extremely hard. Very, very emotional game when you're playing your in-state rival and your players have played against their players growing up and played with them. You got a lot of teammates playing against each other, and when your two coaching staffs recruit the exact same kids, every week of the year, very, very emotional game. I thought it was extremely well played. And both teams played really, really hard. In the end, there's probably three different times in that game where our players could have folded up and lost, and our young men, that take your hat off to them because they just refuse to go away, refuse to give up, and they keep playing the next play, and it come out in our favor at the end.
Frostburg trailed in the fourth quarter 28-21 and 35-28, came back both times. Can you speak to the stick-to-itiveness of your group?
Stick-to-itiveness. Andy, you know the definition of stick-to-itiveness?
Tell me.
Dogged perseverance, dogged tenacity. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it defines the young men in this football program. The stick-to-itiveness of our players, the resiliency, the way they just keep bouncing back. If we have a good play, we tee it up on the next play and play really hard. And if we have a bad play, we learn from it and we tee it up on the next play and play really hard.
How is that taught, or how is that really made through, since the time you got here until winning on Saturday? How has that evolved in this football program? How do players really learn or adapt that trait?
I'd like to take credit for it, but our assistant coaches should get some credit for what they're teaching our players, and they've done a nice job of teaching them to play the next play. But going a little deeper than that, Andy, their mothers and fathers and grandparents and aunts and uncles who have raised these young men should get credit for their ability, to bounce back and to be resilient. And what we do as a coaching staff here is we just make sure we recruit the right kids. If we're in the recruiting process and evaluating a young man, if we think there's a bunch of selfishness, we get off of him. If we think that there's mental and physical weakness, we get off of him, et cetera, et cetera. So the credit starts with the people that raise the young men. That by the time they get here, they're pretty resilient creatures.
Mm-hmm. And that showed on Saturday and throughout this season. Some big performances. Connor Cox, 4 touchdowns, 2 catches for touchdowns by Malik Morris and Lincoln Ikubu. Jamal Morant, 32 carries for over 100 yards and a score. Zach Strand, a couple of sacks, the forced fumble in the final play of the game. What can you say about the guys who really rose to the occasion in this game? And do you have players on your team who relish these opportunities like we saw on Saturday?
Yeah, I'll forget somebody, so you'll have to remind me of someone's name. Connor, the best thing you can say about him is he's a winner, and Connor's a very good football player and a very good quarterback. He's a better winner than he is football player and a quarterback, and yeah, he's not interested in losing on Saturdays, and thankfully for us, he's on our side. Malik Morris has emerged this fall as one of the best players in this conference, maybe one of the best players in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And his ability to make plays on offense and then turn around and make plays on special teams, really, really good football player. And then y'all know, of course, Jamal's one of my favorites. Doesn't get the credit he deserves, and I guess his stature and just how mentally and physically tough he is, kind of I can relate to it and I like it. I'm also partial to the little guy that's just better than all the big guys. So Jamal does a nice job for us, and I knew he was going to play well on Saturday, and he did. He carried the load for us most of the game. And then turn around with Zach Strand on defense, and Zach's a good football player and fun to be around. I've said it 100 times. He likes to play football, so we like to coach him, and it makes it a lot of fun. But Zach's done a nice job, and Yeah, he was probably the best defensive freshman in the conference last year and didn't get credit for it. And he's probably the best defensive sophomore in our conference this year. Now, we don't know how the conference voting and all is going to go, but hopefully he gets credit for that, but does a nice job. You know, the one that doesn't come out a whole lot in the stats, Draquan Reed plays well for us and played well on Saturday and did some good things. And Draquan's been a good senior leader for us. And then, hey, Fielder likes to call them the hog mollies, I think, up front. I always thought a little more enduring term to an offensive lineman is to call them the mules, because that's kind of what they are. They're the mules, but our three senior mules up front, Riley Hartman, and Riley will be all conference and should be an All-American here. It doesn't get credit for this, and yeah, this will be the first time announcing, I guess, but Riley's the winningest starter in school history, and he's now won 36 games as a starter, started every game of his career. Great kid, great student, great player, great family. You know, what else can you say about him? And then beside him is Joey Powell, and Joey is a really, really good football player. Talk about mental and physical toughness now. Joey will show up with some bumps and bruises and beat you up, but his mom and dad did a great job raising him, and he's done a really nice job for us. And here's what Joey Powell's done. He's gotten a little better as a football player every year he's been here. And then another one of my favorites is O'Shane McCall. And O'Shane's our center and been our starting center for 3 years. And I'd go all the way back to the recruiting. I'm over-disclosing with y'all now. I go all the way back to the recruiting process. And we're sitting in a room, and there's 8 coaches watching film, and 6 of them don't like him. 6 of them don't think he's a very good football player. And there were 2 of us in the room, our D-line coach at that time and myself. We were like, there's something about him. There's something about him, something about him, something about him. And then we took him, and he was one of the last players we took on our roster that year, 2015. He gets into camp, and you see really, really fast 2 things. He is mentally and physically tough, and then O'Shane loves football. And I don't know if we've got a guy on our team that likes playing football and likes being a college football player more than O'Shane McCall. And yeah, I've made some demands of him over his 4 years here, and he's answered the call to all those demands to make him a good enough football player to play for us. A lot of fun to be around. But those 3 young men, those 3 seniors, deserve a ton of credit. And then you throw in Jason Money and coming in off the bench and providing, did a nice job left guard on Saturday, and then oh, wow, I drew
Gene Robinson.
Gene Robinson. I could see him, but I drew a blank on his name. Gene Robinson, sophomore left tackle. Playing left tackle is not easy in college football. Doing it as a sophomore. Gene's having a good sophomore season for us.
Back to the Salisbury game. 5 rushes of 30 yards or more with that triple option attack. What made things difficult for your defense to contain Salisbury, especially in terms of big plays?
We didn't play very well defensively on Saturday, and the defensive guys have been told that. We didn't take our assignments seriously enough, and we weren't running and tackling our assignments. And then, guys, there were some times where we as a coaching staff had players right where they were supposed to be at the point of attack, and we just didn't make plays, didn't make the tackles. But instead of need to do a better job as a coaching staff of getting our guys ready. And then our defense has to do a better job of trusting the coaching staff and trusting each other. Trust that the right play call has been made, and then trust that if you do your job, your brother beside you is also going to do his job. But at the end of all that, now take your hat off to Salisbury and that bunch that they had on Saturday, that they were really, really good on Saturday, and Frank Pipage Jr., I think I pronounced that correctly, player, a really, really good football player, and I think he's the conference and national player of the week. But nobody usually lines up and rushes for 200 yards on us, and he did it on Saturday. So give Salisbury coaches and players some credit. They executed on offense.
I want to go to overtime, and this was a decision where Frostburg had led 21-20 in the third quarter, missed a short field goal, 4th and 5 from the Salisbury 20 in the first overtime. Jeremy Harrison comes out and drills the field goal to give Frostburg a 38-35 lead. Was there any hesitation on your part to go out and kick that field goal?
First things first, I'm conspiracy theory. I think Jeremy missed the 20-yarder on purpose just so he'd get a chance to hit the 37-yarder to win the game. No, but to answer your question, no hesitation. I have a lot of confidence in our long snapper, Ryan Landis, and best long snapper in the country, in my opinion, definitely the best in this conference. Our holder, Sean Bliss, does a great job for us, and then Jeremy kicking field goals. Jeremy's a good football player, and he's done a nice job for us for 2 straight years. And again, another sophomore having a really good sophomore season. No hesitation. It's the right call in that situation, and I knew he was going to make it.
I want to speak to the rivalry part of Frostburg against Salisbury before we get to the playoff stuff. It's an overtime game each of the last 2 seasons, a different style of game each of the last 2 years, a high-scoring game this year. I think something your team can be proud of. Salisbury, 3 overtime possessions, 2 last year, 1 this year. The Frostburg defense has 3 takeaways. Can you speak to what this rivalry means to your young men and how much that they refused to yield or lose this game this year, last year, even the previous year?
Yeah, three straight Regions Cup victories, and when we got here, they had beaten Frostburg like 12 straight years. So something that got thrown in our coaching staff's face early on when we were here, what was the fact that Salisbury had that Regions Cup down on their campus for over a decade now. All the Salisbury fans listening need to understand that for the next 100 years, that Regions Cup's going to sit in Frostburg exactly where it belongs. So we won 3 straight, and we won the last one, and that's a good thing. When you talk about how much it means to the players, they all know each other. That they all know each other, and we're both regional mid-Atlantic universities, and we're both Maryland State schools, so you all grow up together. And then as a coaching staff, I don't go to a recruiting event that Salisbury's not there. Either I'm there when they get there, or they're there when I get there, and not the best of relationships between the coaching staffs and some of the players right now, but that'll all ease with time. And great rivalry. It's a little bit sad to see it end. Great rivalry, great atmosphere at those 2 games. Yeah, we beat them 3 years ago. We beat them 21-17, scored a touchdown with 1:04 on the clock, so it was that close.
Yep.
Last year we beat them in overtime. They fumbled in overtime to lose the football game after we had scored a touchdown. This year we kick a field goal and they fumble in overtime. So both the last 2 years have ended on fumbles by them in overtime. It is as good a rivalry as I have ever been a part of. 24 years of college football, it's as good a rivalry as I've ever been a part of, and just exciting to be a part of something like that. I'm extremely happy for our university and our town and our state and our players and our assistant coaches to go out the way we went out.
Finally, shifting gears to the playoffs, Frostburg's regular season earned the Bobcats a Pool A bid. They're in the tournament. A home game in the first round. The opponent is Western New England, the champions of the Commonwealth Coast Conference. They're located in Western Massachusetts. WNE is making its 4th straight NCAA playoff appearance, averaging 45 points a game. A dual-threat quarterback, Alec Coleman, who has accounted for 38 touchdowns this season. What are your thoughts? Have you preparation like this week? Finding out it's New England on Sunday and then playing on Saturday, what's the process like for your team, and what do you know about Western New England?
Our coaching staff's in the early stages of watching film and getting ready for them. I say the early stages. I've watched their 4 films that we have now 3 times apiece, so I watched it 12 times, and then getting into. Andy, the best way I can say this is that they're 8-2. They're a very good football program. They didn't hit the lottery to win 8 games. They actually earned 8 victories and had a chance to win another one in there and win 9 games. Good football team, good coaching staff. I don't know any member of their coaching staff or of their team, which is strange because we usually know somebody somewhere. But their coaching staff does a nice job of getting their young men prepared to play, and then their young men play hard. You mentioned the quarterback, and he's the spark plug of that offense. It's averaging 45 points a game. And I'm going to get his stats wrong, but he's thrown for a bunch of yards and run for a bunch of yards.
Yep.
He's got a little running back, number 22, does a nice job. And they got a wide receiver, number 4. It's a good player. Their left tackle is as good as anybody we see on film, all year long. So they got a guy up front that's a good football player. But I've been impressed with how hard and how well their players play. They flip over on defense, and it's much of the same. Their defensive coordinator does a nice job of getting them into multiple fronts. They'll give you a 4-4 front, and then they'll give you a 4-3 front, and then they jump into a 3-4. They jump into an odd, oaky front on you. which when you can change fronts and be fundamentally sound, be technique sound, gap integrity sound, it gives offensive linemen, fullbacks, and tight ends a lot of trouble blocking you because they don't know where you're going to be from play to play. Anyway, then that they've done a nice job there defensively. They got an outside linebacker and a corner that I think are pretty good players. They're bigger than most of the people we play up front, so their defensive line does a nice job there. And then they got 2 inside linebackers that play hard.
For Frostburg State in the playoffs last year, 3 games on the road, how nice is it in terms of the travel, the preparation, and then game day itself to be at Bobcat Stadium, and how excited is the team to have extra games here?
Yeah, always excited to play extra games. And then as an old man, you like to sleep in your bed at night before a game. That's nice. I don't know if I've ever slept 8 straight hours in a hotel bed, so you don't want to be in a hotel. As little as possible, the older I get, the less I want to travel. So being at home is great. I've said this before, said it again. Our 18 to 22-year-olds on our team, I don't think they care. And to be honest with you, if you ask them, they may pick the road because they get to see a different place and they get to go a different place and stay a different place and eat at a different restaurant. Young men think travel's exciting and playing in different venues is exciting. And we play well on the road just like we play well at home. So, I think they would be okay with it. You brought up playing extra games. In college football is not like some of the other sports. Our baseball team a couple years ago, and our baseball coaches do a great job here, but I think they played 60-some games a couple years ago. They won 50 games. They were like 52-6 or 52-9 or something, the Final Four baseball team we had. But to getting to that, we don't get to play 60 games. They have 10 opportunities a year. Hurricane Florence took one of those opportunities away from our young men, so they only got to play 9 this fall. We're just playing our 10th game this week, and the opportunity to play a handful more football games this fall is really, really exciting. And then flipping it now, probably more exciting for the old coaches than it is for the young men. The young men think this is going to last forever, that they think they're just going to line up and play football forever, not understanding that the window of opportunity for them to play college football games and to participate in college athletics is so small. They get from 18 to 22 to play college ball, and then you get from 22 to 72 to work.
Mm-hmm. What can we expect from your football team or your young men this weekend?
Now, we're going to be through the roof excited now. So we will be busting at the seams to play football this Saturday. So we understand that it's the second playoff game in school, home playoff game in school history, and we understand what's at stake. And we also understand what we're capable of doing in this tournament now. You know, we start out the year with 250 teams. We're down to 32 teams, and now each week it gets cut in half. So we're in the final we're in the final 32, and we're trying to get to the final 2 and win it.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Bobcat Stadium this Saturday. Western New England is in town. DeLane Fitzgerald, thank you for joining us this week on the Bobcast.
Thank you all for having me. Go Bobcats.
Next on the Bobcast, we have Frostburg State men's and women's swimming coach Bryan Christiansen with us. Swimming hosted St. Mary's this past Saturday in a conference meet. The men losing a very close one, 128 to 126. The women falling 146-116. Some highlights from this meet: 4 school records broken on the women's side. Daisy DeMonte, school records in the 100 back and 100 butterfly. Maddie Weinberger broke her own school record in the 200 breaststroke. And then the 2 of them, along with Emily Turner and Aubrey Morris, set school record in the 200 medley relay. The men's 200 free relay, also a school record time.
I should note that Maddie actually tied her record last week.
Oh, thank you,
and
sir.
She broke it by 1/100th this week, so she's apparently pretty good at swimming 251.1s in that 200 breaststroke.
Yeah, exactly, 251.10.
I should say meters for people at home who may not remember.
Yep, our pool is in meters. Salisbury's pool is in meters.
Yeah.
So they Maddie Weinberger right on the nose in those times. And so those are the records. And Coach, what do you think about the way your team swam on Saturday?
Yeah, after the meet, I was, had a lot of unyielding, blinding rage about that loss. After reflecting for about a day or so, I've cooled down a little bit and realized how good that we really had done. I think being so close on the men's side, just a couple things have gone our way. It could have been a very different meet, and almost immediately after, I was looking up ways that we could have won or different ways that we could have,
In a one-point
done
meet,
the
there are
lineup
lots of
different.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually 8 races that came down to like within a half second. We lost 6 of those races, and that's the difference right there. That's on the men's and women's side. So we gotta finish. We gotta hold on. We gotta start racing harder. I mean, we were talking about going hard between the flags. I think we got that really well right now. But we gotta get these little things down pat. Especially as holding on and when it's coming down to you and someone else getting that touch out. We lost that battle 6 out of 8 times, and you're just not going to win a meet that way.
Well, we talked about racing between the flags. How do you improve at those other aspects, starting, going off the wall, and finishing? How do you practice that when so much of swimming is fitness, and that is just a little part but a very important part?
Well, I mean, it just comes down to mental errors and just it's training that mental side of things. Making sure that we are conscious of this. Showing them, telling them in practice this morning, like, hey guys, we got to be better. And this is something we do every single day in practice. Every time you finish, you're having a good habit or a bad habit. And I saw kids pulling up on the wall today, and just kind of reminding them, that we can't do that. It's just a little thing, a little mental switch in practice. And that's something you practice every single time you finish on the wall, whether we're doing drill or easy or warm up or whatever. We're finishing hard.
And that potentially
skill,
could pay
but
off.
Mental skill, yeah.
Because we're practicing in a meters pool and championships, other events are at yards pools. So if you're finishing strong, you don't even have to go that far. Last week, you talked about how Salisbury was the best meet of the season for your teams in terms of just being jacked up and excited to race and compete. What would you say about the team's effort and just excitement level to compete this past weekend with St. Mary's?
We were at like 85% capacity pump up from where we were at Salisbury. We were pretty good, but we weren't. I don't know what. I'm still learning the Frostburg way here. I don't know what it is about Salisbury that gets people like jacked around here. I don't know if it's a Western state, Eastern state thing or what. But we were up there, but we weren't fired up quite the way that we were last week.
What were the standout performances from your perspective? The swimmers of the meet that I saw, Maddie Weinberger, Daisy DeMonte, Megan Culbertson on the women's side, Anthony Giuseppetti, Brady Peterson, Hunter McFalls, and Matt Whelan on the men's side. What were the standouts and why?
Brady is a guy who's kind of got this honor a couple times now. He's just a dude who steps up. He had a pretty clutch third place in the 400 free, which isn't quite his event, but we're kind of throwing him in that a lot lately, just because he is like our third fastest guy. That let us go 1, 2, 3 in that event, which was a huge. And then in this 200 fly, which is also a really tough event, him coming back from being down on the last 50 is just like really impressive to watch. Anthony, he's been struggling. He's been having a lot of cramping issues and just kind of asthma issues, and then we're putting him in the 100 IM, kind of like, hey, take it easy, just score some points. He ends up winning it. I'm just like, geez, man, take it easy. You're dying here. He just really stepped up when the team needed him. And then we had some people, some last minute changes with Hunter and Matt. Another kid who was just wasn't feeling well, wasn't swimming well. So he was in the 100 fly. So I went up to Hunter and I was like, hey, can you do the 100 fly like 4 minutes from now? Hunter, he's a captain for a reason. Sir, yes, sir. Hops in, did what we needed him to do, and then you can only swim 4 events. So Hunter was gonna be in the last relay.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Whelan had a pretty rough 100 fly, 100 IM. Then I was like, hey man, last relay for you. You're swimming like I think there's actually three out of the last 3 events. Like, hey, hop in, do this.
And he was all for it?
Sir, yes, sir. So that's important to acknowledge them. On the women's side, I think Maddie had a great meet. I think Maddie's I think we take Maddie for granted a lot that she's just gonna win. And she was actually going up against some pretty tough competition that she's
Yeah,
going to see at the end of the year.
Yep, second in one breaststroke, third in the other last year.
And she, I think Maddie showed why she's on top with a couple good races, which is really nice to see. Meg Culbertson had her wisdom teeth out. She did not swim, but her peers actually acknowledged her as a swimmer of the meet, coach of the meet, maybe stander, person who stands at the meet. Just because she's a college girl, she's got her whole Saturday ahead of her. She chose to come in, support her team, get some splits, help out, set things up. Really dedicated, and that's good to see.
Sure.
And Daisy, you set 3 school records.
She keeps rolling, man.
Yeah, and she did a really good job. I was also thinking of Lexi Hancher, who I didn't. I kind of meant to acknowledge her, doing 4 events, doing some different things, doing some 100 breaststroke when we needed her to. Just stepping up when the team needs her on these things, which is cool stuff. She's not getting the glory. She did not win that 200 breaststroke. She's not setting any records there, but she's equal to what the team needs her. So.
Well, not everyone's going to set a school record every time out, but as you have said, when you lose a meet by 2 points, pretty much any swimmer can help win the meet, and a lot of those guys are willing to do multiple events. So, as a coach, is that exciting for you to have? A lot of these swimmer of the week are kids who get a heavy workload and accept that and just go out and swim their best and leave it all out there.
Yeah, we need that, and that's all I ask for. There's people on this team that we need to win. There's people on this team that we need to get third. There's people on this team that we need to get fifth. Everyone has a role, and that should be really apparent at a meet that we lose by 2 points.
When I asked you about it on Saturday, you said school records were fine, but good swims are what you and your staff are after. Really, what do you look for, and what qualifies as a good swim in your mind? And when the swim meet ends, what do you look at first in terms of really determining how did today go?
I guess the first thing you look at is just kind of the attitude that people had. You can kind of tell, people having fun, are people cheering each other, are we dejected after our races? I'm looking at body language. I'm looking, who's slumping, who's got their chin up high. I think attitude kind of informs everything else.
Mm-hmm.
A good swim, you're looking for someone who's relaxed but fast, excited, who's getting off the walls, who has a good tempo, good acceleration, a smart swim. They're not dying, but they're not loafing it either. It's all about finding that balance. And that's it. I think we can get obsessed with times, and I think it's really easy in swimming.
Mm-hmm.
I think that wrecks a lot of people. We got to focus on the process, got to focus on, those good swims, and the times will come.
And finally, for St. Mary's, before we move on to F&M, we got a chance to look. St. Mary's has some pretty good sprinters on both sides in some of those shorter distances, 100 and then 200 even. Good breaststroker on the women's side, good distance swimmer on the women's side. How would you say that your team took the challenge and raced some of the better swimmers that St. Mary's had?
We did fine. I think that we couldn't really touch some of their distance kids. It just wasn't going to happen. Their distance people could challenge, or their distance girl could challenge some of our guys at distance. I think that it's hard because it's that challenge where it's not really an achievable challenge. It's not a winnable challenge.
Sure.
I do think that we slipped some people around like Becca Marsh. I was kind of I don't think you're going to touch this girl in the 800, so I'm going to put you in the 200. And
she took care of business there.
She did. So kind of finding a way around, kind of knowing that you have worth more than getting destroyed in your best event. You can win this too. So, in other ways we stepped up well. Maddie certainly, we already talked about her stepping up to that challenge and saying, hey, this is someone on your tail. Can you hold on? And I think she did a really great job.
Finally, let's turn to F&M this coming weekend. It's a 3-day meet. It's traditionally one of the fastest meets of the year for Frostburg State in the early part of the year. That's been by design before. What is your design for handling the F&M meet this year?
Yeah, we'll rest a little bit this week. The kids probably don't think it because we did a big test set today, but after today, kind of this with ultimately low yardage, but a more aerobic day today, and then we'll kind of bring it down the rest of the week. It's definitely going to be a fast meet. It's going to be a challenging meet. Top 24 make it back, but I think we're going to have to work to be in that top 24. Nothing is really for granted. We got to keep working. Swim fast.
It's a little bit different of a format and competition, being over 3 days, having preliminary rounds and finals, lots of strong competition. How are you expecting your team to handle that, all of those factors, and how can you really prepare your team for some of those factors?
I think to some extent we treat it like any other meet. It's like you're just going to work, do your swim, trust your training, go through your routine, go through your warm-up. It's big meets aren't a time to change things, to do things a lot different. The point of doing as many meets as we do is to get in that rhythm, kind of know our races, and know what it takes for us to swim fast. So we're not going to change strokes. We're not going to do anything new. We're not going to do anything crazy. We're going to work.
Well, we're looking forward to it. F&M, traditionally one of the fastest meets of the year for FSU in this first half, and we're excited, and we'll talk to you next week. Bryan Christiansen, thank you for joining me this week on the Bobcast.
Thank you.
Next on the Bobcast, we have our wrap-up conversation for the cross-country season with head coach Dale Louie. Men's and women's cross-country competed at DeSales for the NCAA Mideast Regional, the men finishing 22nd out of 52 teams, and junior Sarah McCurry representing Frostburg State on the women's side. And we've talked about this all year, Coach. DeSales is a familiar course for your runners. Already have been there this year and years past. Some tough conditions. So what did you make of your runners' efforts on Saturday, considering it was a familiar course and there were some tough conditions?
They were prepared, physically and mentally. I was pretty confident of that, heading to it. The mindset of this men's team is where it needs to be, and it's been that way. I've always tried to say you got to, ramp it up there when you get to that championship part of the season, and just focus more and be smarter about a lot of things you do. And this team is, very much, I think bought into that, and they have become extraordinarily focused on their performance, and very interestingly, very, very focused. The seniors have been very focused because it's the last go-round for them. And, of course, all the seniors were able to run there at our conference meet. But at regionals here, we senior-wise, we just had Robbie and
Matthew
and Matt, going and stuff. But there was that focus, and then there was just really this incredible conversation in the team huddle there, as we just touched on a few important things, and believe it or not, they ran in part motivated, knowing that this was their last time as student athletes at the D3 level, and it was interesting to stand there and to listen to the meaning that had for a number of them, and I do think that actually helped with how they approached that race.
Well, the men's side, 22nd out of 52 teams. That's a top half performance. That's 9 spots higher than the men were last year. Now that the season's over, can you kind of put this in relative terms to, let's say, just for even the senior class in these 4 years, was this the best year in terms of the overall performance, conference championship performance, and regional performance?
Well, there's no doubt that this senior class is, and I spoke to them just as a senior class the night before the conference championships about the fact that, I thank them for 4 years. It's not always easy to retain athletes for 4 years, especially in our sport where, there's not a whole lot of glory. And on the plus side, we always say nobody sits on the bench, so where, maybe the team is rah, 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 and you're part of that in a way, from the standpoint of showing up, for practice and stuff like this. Cross country is a demanding sport, and you got to want to do it, and there is no glory just by, sitting, somewhere. And they buy into that, and we have a group of seniors, top to bottom, that have just really, from day one, they've engaged with each other, they've engaged with their teammates, they've helped to grow our men's side of things. And I think very interestingly, there have been some new people who've joined the team who in some ways have pushed some of our seniors back, in terms of top 10 or top 7 or something like that. And there's a lot of people who would just say, what's it worth, And these guys have just stuck with it. They love to run. They love to engage with each other. They're supportive of each other. And we've got we're going to lose a lot of guys there. More importantly, we're going to lose some good people and some really good student athletes as well.
Was this a fun team to be around on the men's side, and just to
it
be
has
the whole
been.
year?
I've coached a long time, and each of them is a unique personality, which I very much have appreciated. They are. There's no getting around it. If you go and look at that Division III student athlete mantra, discover, develop. They really fit into that, and that's just who they are, and they're very proud of that. And, hopefully they've rubbed off on their underclassmen in that way, so that approach to studies and athletics, continues. It doesn't matter what level you're at. I think it's important to understand that, we've always preached student comes before athlete. And this senior class has followed that mantra, and I think they have rubbed off on some of their underclassmen that way.
That's good to hear, and I think it starts at the top too. Robbie Romano is a guy who has a demanding course load and has had an outstanding season. 24th at the regionals. He's an all-region pick. Back to the regional, what can you say about the race that he ran on Saturday and just the season he was able to put together as a senior?
Yeah, a great year. And it sounds overly simplistic, but you know what? The last two races, I'll be quite honest with you, Robbie has been so consistent this year and running up front in every single race he's been in. And you just hope as a coach with all your heart that when you get to the championships that he's not slipping in some water somewhere or sliding down a hill in the mud, especially this year or whatever. You just really hope that, okay, you've had a great senior year. Can we cap it off with two great championship races? And you know what? He did it at conference, and he came back at regionals and ran an even better one yet. It's been one of the most consistently superior performances by a runner I've coached in the 40-some years that I've coached. And I've had people, who've done very well through the years. And I don't like generally to rank people one way or the other, but I will simply say again, he's had a really phenomenal, consistently high-performing senior year.
Wins all over the place, all CAC first team, all region. That he's one that this cross-country program is really going to miss moving forward. I want to get to the rest of the men's side here at the regional at the least. The regional is one of the largest races in the country at the college level. How did your team really navigate that challenge this weekend?
They've gotten really smart about how they race, and that's really the difference between being a talented cross-country runner and a good cross-country runner. That's probably the thing I'm most happy about with these men here this year. And I'll jump over to Sarah McCurry there at regional. Same thing. They really are looking at what we preached all the time. Take what the course gives you, and be smart about who you're racing with. And you guys train together all week long. week after week, you should have some sense of where you are relative to your teammate out in the race. And they've done a really good job of that, for the last half of this season. So I'm really happy with that. We've got a little bit of a gap between Robbie and some of the other guys there, which we would have loved to have closed in a little bit more. But that the rest of those guys have packed together and have, as we've talked many times, interchanged. Braxton Clark has really developed into a good athlete. Colin Flynn came in here and has continued to impress as a new runner on our team. Matt Whitley has run just absolutely phenomenal the last several meets. If there's anybody that recognizes that this is the last go-around, it's Mr. Whitley. And he has, I believe, that he has really pulled the rest of that pack together because, as I just said, practice together, know who your teammates are, and here comes Matt, and he's pushing the envelope. And I think he's really pushed and pulled these other guys along. It's just really been, great to see. And his performances have just been the best of his career.
I want to shift over to the women's side here quickly. Sarah McCurry, the representative for the Bobcats at the Mideast Regional, a chance to what did you make of her race another time on the DeSales course that she's familiar with, and then the season that she's been able to have and be healthy this year more than she's been in her career and put together a body of work that she can be proud of?
Yeah. Well, big jump up this year for her, and I anticipate that's going to continue. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see that jump up, even more significant as we go into track and then her senior year next year there. Some of us were talking that it was very interesting Saturday to see. You get a muddy course like that and 30-degree winds and
oh yeah,
it's not about time. It's about place and how many people can you beat. And we made some observations that Sarah was really breathing down the neck of some individuals who were significantly out, really good runners who were significantly out in front of her a little further in races earlier in this year. And Saturday is like, there they are, and it's like, oh, Sarah's right there.
Yeah.
And that's great to see. Because, she's another one that takes what the course gives her. She's a very solid, consistent runner. That's her cup of tea. She's not going to outkick many people. She just needs to just keep hammering mile after mile after mile. And if you can do that in conditions like we had on Saturday, you are really going to close the gap, and you're going to beat some people that, maybe, were further out in front of you, and it sounds a little negative to say, but maybe they're not quite as mentally tough as somebody like Sarah.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that, Sarah and Robbie especially, just the toughness that they've exhibited throughout this season. Finally, more so than any other sport in terms of being connected, cross country and track and field are connected. Does the experience, especially on the men's side, and the tight knit nature of the group bode well for, say, the distance portion of your track team this coming winter and spring?
It definitely does, certainly from a training side of things. We've got a real nice mix of people. We've got some different training groups, within that mix there, and that's always extremely helpful in terms of, everybody improving. Track is a totally different sport than cross country, and we'll have some people who respond better on the track than maybe in cross country, and vice versa. But the base that these people have is the basic training they have is going to help carry them through, and we always give them a little bit of a break here because it's a long road for these distance runners during the course of the academic year and everything. But what you do find is like a lot of sports, you're coming off a good season, and there's that willingness to, get back at it again sooner rather than later.
Well, we are excited. It's been a fun cross-country season. The men's side finishing 22nd at the regional. The women's side sending Sarah McCurry, wrapping up her fantastic season. Coach, we'll give you a week or two off, and then we'll jump right into women's track. Thank you so much for talking with us all year.
All right. Good to speak with you.
Up next in the Bobcast, we're really excited to have our preseason conversation with first-year men's basketball head coach Sean Brown. And, Coach, not a stranger at all to this Frostburg State men's basketball program. A conference championship here as a player, graduate assistant, lead assistant, 10 years as a coach here. What does it mean for you to have this opportunity to coach here at your alma mater?
Man, it's a dream come true to be able to come back home and try to lead this group of guys to a conference championship. It means the world to me. I've always spoke about how I thought this school and this location was a gold mine, and this athletic program, this athletic department could do great things. And we're starting to do some really good things in the athletic department. Under the direction of Mr. Dell.
We're looking forward to having you this season. What is your coaching philosophy and style? You had a chance for a long time to coach under Coach Hatch, who retired last season. Your particular philosophy and style when it comes to the game of basketball?
Well, Coach Hatch was a really, really great guy to work under and learn under. He taught me a lot about this business, this profession. Coach Hatch is he's an old school kind of coach.
Yes.
All right, and I still have a lot of those values in my coaching philosophy. But I'm a little bit different, and I'm a defensive minded coach. Our game is predicated on getting stops. Really, bearing down, playing good man-to-man, solid half-court man-to-man defense, and holding teams to one shot, contesting every shot. That's, that's the attitude that we want to bring every single day at practice, and hopefully that'll spill over on the court during game time.
That's interesting. Is Frostburg last season played typically some of the highest scoring games in the conference, number 2 in points per game, number 10 in points per game allowed. Coach Hatch told us many times last year he wants to be attempting 70, 75 shots per game. What does it take to play or are you still looking to play a high pace but also defend at a high level? What does that look like, and what kind of effort does that take from your team?
Well, we do want to – well, first off, again, we want to defend at a high level, and we really believe that great defense can create good or great offense. All right, we want to score in the open court, just like they did last year, just like in the past. But we want to really, really bear down and create turnovers, and more than anything, get stops. If not turnovers, we want to hold teams to one shot, and then we will get out and run. And our defense, our offense may suffer early. It's just kind of guys kind of figuring things out. We're shuffling lineups, trying to figure things out, but. We still going to score a lot of points. We're not trying to put a cap on how many shots we want to take, or we're not trying to shoot a whole bunch of times. However the game plays out. Again, defensively, it'll work itself out. But we still anticipate we'll be around 70, 75 points a game. We'll get up close to 60 to 65 shots a game. That won't change because there'll be a lot of possessions one way or another because one team will be winning, other team will be losing, obviously.
Sure. You've been with Frostburg for a long time. However, for this particular group, you were away, you come back. What's the process for you to get to know your team, your players, your personnel, and what do you think you have here in terms of your talent and potential?
Well, first off, Coach Campbell, he's been really, really helpful in this transition. He was a graduate assistant here in the program the last 2 years. He was a kid that I recruited from the junior college ranks. Came here, had a pretty solid career. But he loved Frostburg. He embodied everything about, that Frostburg State stood for. So I leaned on Tyler quite a bit coming back, and he's really helped me with that transition. But as far as my personal relationship with the guys, kind of just talking to the guys and getting to know them a little bit better. I got hired there in May, and I appreciate the early start I got and coming in and talking to the guys and really meeting with them. And I didn't meet with them individually at that point, but since the years gone on, I've met with every last player several times, and we've built a really solid relationship. And we talk about things outside of basketball quite a bit. We talk about school, we talk about life, we talk about what's going on campus. We talk about 10 years down the road. Those things are important to me and my coaching staff, and those are the things that we want to preach, and we want to teach these guys how to be good husbands and good fathers and good good people when they leave and join the real world.
That's a very similar answer to what I've gotten just around here in the coaching staff. When I talk to Coach Fitzgerald of the football team, it's a very similar answer there with the relationship with his players as well. What's your impression for this particular group in terms of your impression of their strengths and weaknesses, especially early in the season as a team?
Well, our weaknesses. Let me start with the weaknesses.
Sure.
Okay. I think we're a little undisciplined. Okay. We're a little undisciplined. Things get tough. We don't band together. We kind of go our separate ways, and that's been concerning early. And we're really, really working to get rid of that mentality. Okay. We have to come together when things get tough. And our guys throw around the championship word a lot, and most teams do in the preseason, but we're so far from being a championship team right now, and I think our guys are really starting to see it now. You got to put in the work, and you got to really, really be as one. You really have to come together and want to work for each other. So
it's interesting because this team last year beats CNU, beats York, and those are the teams that are playing for the championship, so the potential was there. But in order to be a championship level roster or a championship level team, that needs to be consistent throughout the season. And that is one thing for this men's basketball team that is my biggest question mark. And you bring up performing in adversity. How do you improve the attitude and the performance and the coming together in adversity and ultimately leading to more consistency?
Okay,
what's that process like?
First, let me tell you what our strength is, what
Sure.
I think our strength is, and then I'll get back to that. Okay, our strength, I think we all like each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's hard to get on a team of 20 guys. All right, they all like each other, and that's going to be a strength down the road, because I do believe that guys are going to end up banding together and trusting each other, especially in those tough times. So I that's the major strength that I believe our guys have. Now, back to your last question.
Consistency. How do you build that over the course of a season?
Well, you got to there's certain things that you have to emphasize, and that's what we're trying to do here at practice every single day. We're working hard to emphasize certain things. I don't want to give any.
You don't have to give away too much
now, but eventually I'll give you more as the season go on, obviously. But there's certain things, there's certain buzzwords that we're using. There's certain things we're emphasizing, and we're really holding strict to those point of emphasis. And that's how you just got to drill it. It's just consistent. It's habits. You got to drill it, and eventually we'll change those bad habits. We'll get to where we want to get.
Getting into some specifics here for this team in terms of its returners, 6 seniors graduated from last year's team, 3 guys that are back who were major contributors, played 20-plus minutes a game, and senior Edwin Cole and juniors Lawrence Pettis and Daniel Alexander. What has been your impression of those guys, and what do they bring to the table for your team?
Well, let me go back a little bit. Daniel was the very last guy that I toured on campus before leaving for the Pitt Bradford job. Um, we knew he had a whole lot of promise. We knew he was going to have to put in a lot of work. And Coach Campbell over the last two years has really put in a lot of work with Edwin. Skill wise, he's made a commitment to the weight room and playing in the off season. This kid puts in a ton of work. I think he was playing 6-7 days this off season, and it's going to show this year. But Lawrence, let me go to Lawrence. He's a kid that I had my eye on since he was 12 years old. Okay, and believe it or not, in a roundabout way, I'm glad he ended up here. And I knew about him when he was here. I kept an eye on him. And when I came in, you hear things good and bad. But one thing you know about Lawrence, he's a competitor. Okay, and that's one thing. He showed some leadership skills that I didn't know he had. And he's trying to lead this team in the right way, in the right direction. And he has some work to do. He still has to get stronger. He's quick as can be. He can shoot the ball. We'd like him to shoot it better. His decision making is awesome. We're working with Lawrence, and Lawrence is he's accepted our coaching thus far, and we're very excuse me, happy with Lawrence's progression. Now Daniel was another kid who I knew about Daniel. Just kind of watching him from afar. I didn't know how athletic he was. He really is. I mean, Daniel's long. He's athletic. He can run for days. And our coaching staff, we have a little joke, a little inside joke, and we keep saying, how are we gonna keep him off of the floor? Is every time I look up, he's on the floor, and there's nobody. It's not that there's no one to sub for him, but he's never tired. He's always active. He's always jumping out at you. So it's Daniel's going to be a really good player for us this year. He's trying to expand his game defensively. He's learning some defensive strategies that he never knew. We're helping him there. He's coming in for individual workouts, which all these guys are. They're really working their butts off. They're trying to get better. Daniel's going to be a good player. As far as Ed, now I know I spoke about Ed first. He's going to be a really good player in this league this year. All right. We've been moving him around. We've played with the idea of putting him on the wing. And he looked pretty good doing it in the preseason. We're probably not going to start him out there, but Edwin's going to be a really hard guy to guard in this league because we're going to move him around. We're going to put the ball in his hands. Have him beat guys off the dribble. We're going to post him up. We're going to do run high lows with Edwin and Zach. We just have a whole lot of plans for Edwin this year. We're just excited. Those three are really leading our guys right now to where we want to be, and I think they've done a good job thus far.
Yeah, those were the three that we really knew coming back from last year. And what's exciting about that trio as well is you're talking about a defensive team. All three guys are equipped to be really strong defensive players.
Absolutely.
If not are already. I do want to touch on Zach Coleman returning to this roster, and he's already the most prolific shot blocker in Frostburg men's basketball history. What does he bring to the table for this team this season and his final season here?
Well, you said it. He loves to play defense, and Zach's another kid who I recruited or we recruited as a coaching staff, and I got really involved with Zach and his family. We built a pretty solid relationship. He was the first guy I called to see if he want to take another crack at it. We wanted him to end his senior year and go out the right way. He thought about it, and he decided to come back. He called me. He said, "Coach, I'm in." And we were really excited and pumped up about that. And, Zach has come back. He's worked really hard. Right now he's dealing with a minor injury. We're hoping it's minor. He rolled his ankle 2 days ago. Unfortunately, 5 days before we open up the season.
Mm-hmm.
But we we're really really happy with where Zach at. Um, Again, he brings stability to our defense. He's that big guy inside, that Patrick Ewing, that Akeem Olajuwon inside, where you bring it in there, you better float it over top of him 50 feet.
Good luck.
Or he's going to get it. As you mentioned, Zach owns a lot of the shot blocking records in Frostburg history. I was on the bench his freshman year when he broke the single game record.
Mm-hmm.
And those things stick out in my mind. We got big plans for Zach defensively. So we want to be a defensive team. We want to get stops, hold teams to one shot, and I definitely think Zach will help us out in that department.
So there's the three: Cole Pettis and Alexander, Coleman coming back, and then the rest of the team in the rotation. We got some glimpses at guys like Tristan Griffith, Desmond Lighty last season, some minutes. But there are lots of newcomers, 13 guys who weren't on the roster last season. How do you expect the rest of your rotation and team to shake out? And what's the process for you kind of filling in the rest of the team around the proven commodities that we've already seen?
Well, outside of those 4 guys, there was another 5 or 6 guys from last year's roster. So they already have an understanding, number one, of college basketball. Number two, I'm under the Coach Hatch's coaching tree, as many of us out here.
Yes.
Kendrick Saunders and Coach Zach Olson. You have so many of us out here. Brendan McCarthy. So they already know what a lot of the things that we're, going to do. Although we have a different way of teaching it and coaching it, they've been in the system basically. We run 50 to 60% of the same ideals that Coach Hatch has run. So we already have, if you add those 6 in, there's 10 guys that basically know what we want, what we're expecting as far as transition game offensively and defensively, ball line, midline defense. So those 2 things, those are never going to change. So the other guys, we just kind of have to try to work them into the culture we're trying to build. We're new also. We're a new coaching staff. We have 2 new coaches that wasn't around last year. So we're all learning together and, just kind of trying to figure things out, shuffling lineups and playing guys different positions. We're just trying to figure it out. That's what the non-conference games are for. You want to win them all, and we're going to try to win them all. But we're also going to use this time to figure out who we really are.
Anyone that you expect to contribute right away, or anyone in terms of newcomers that has impressed you and the staff in the early work that you've had through this past month or so?
Yes, they have. We start with Terry Kenner. Terry Kenner is a transfer from Anne Arundel Community College. He's a junior. He's a really, really sharp shooting guard. Can put the ball on the floor, can get to the basket. Has a really nice in-between game, nice handle, can make plays off the dribble. He's been a really, really good, big pickup for us this offseason. I would say a surprise, but he wasn't a surprise. We knew what he could do. He filled it up in junior college last year. I think he averaged 18, 5, and 5 on 46% shooting, almost 40% shooting from the 3. So we knew what he could do, but he's kind of stepped in and he's accepted coaching also. He's learning our stuff, and I think he's going to be a really good player. Nick Johnson, he's a freshman, about 6'6", with a 6'11" wingspan. Okay, in high school he played kind of a 3-4, but we've played him exclusively at the 2-3 thus far in the preseason. Nick wants to be a guard. he has some guard skills, and we're really gonna put him in the gym and get him ready to be that shooting guard that he wants to be. He's really opened our eyes. He likes to get to the basket. He has a nice pull-up game. He can hit the three on occasion. We'd like for him to keep getting to the basket a little bit more than pulling up for that three. But Nick is very, very talented. He's going to really make noise in this league when he gets up to speed. Blake Hatcher, point guard, freshman point guard from Baltimore, really surprised us over this last week or so. He's dealing with an ACL in the junior year of his high school. His senior year, he had a pretty solid senior year last year. But he's a kid I remember seeing in the 10th grade, and I didn't know a whole lot of what happened to him. But then I found out that it was the ACL. We got him this summer, in the middle of the summer, and he's been a really good surprise for us. He's going to probably share minutes with Lawrence as well as Desmond. But be on the lookout for this kid.
We'll look out for all of them, and. Finally, we'll wrap it up here.
Yes, sir.
The CAC play does not begin until January. Frostburg has 11 non-conference games before then. Really, what are you looking to accomplish in your non-conference schedule? And you also have some Division II and Division I competition on that schedule. So what are you looking for out of your teams, and what's your rationale behind scheduling some of those games, really scheduling up, as they say?
Well, first off, we got the word that we were going Division II.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, when we found out that it was official that we were going to Division II, well, two teams had already dropped us from their schedule already. So, and I didn't make the schedule, just, full disclosure.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But, I did have those two games that I could schedule. And then a third team dropped us. But, there's a former coach here that was here at Frostburg State, is at Longwood University as a Division I assistant now, and he kind of we went back and forth, and he kind of made that happen for us, and we wanted our guys to see what it is to be to play against a scholarship athlete. We want these guys to see what scholarship athletes look like, and no, we're not thinking this is not a throwaway year. No, we're not thinking past this year, but this was a great opportunity for our guys to see what scholarship athletes look and play like. So it was great that we were able to schedule a solid middle of the road Division I, as well as a solid middle of the road Division II team on our schedule, so we can see what scholarship players look like, as well as the brutal non-conference, the rest of our non-conference schedule at the beginning of the year.
Short-term goals, what are you looking for out of the first week, Cheney and Penn State Altoona?
Well, I'm hoping that, and this is cliche,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping our guys play as well as they can play. I'm hoping they go out and compete really hard. I hope they go out and try to do the things that we've asked of them over the last 4 weeks. That's all that we can ask. We're still trying to find ourselves. Obviously we want to win. We want to win them all. But, all we can ask for is our guys to go out and compete hard and, leave it all on the court.
Well, Coach Sean Brown, we are psyched to have that home opener Saturday night against Penn State Altoona. We are excited for this season. We look forward to chatting with you every week here on the Bobcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Next on the Bobcast, we have another season preview conversation with women's basketball head coach Carrie Saunders. Women's basketball last season, 12 wins, another appearance in the CAC tournament for the second consecutive season. This is the first time Frostburg has gone to back-to-back conference tournaments since Frostburg joined the CAC in 2011. Last season, a lot of different players had to step up because of injury, illness, other circumstances that led to progression really all over the place. And really, Coach, you look at last season and all of the different things that you and your team had to deal with. In what ways did that really shape the roster and the players to be ready for this season and to have a great year?
I think last year during those times where we had so many injuries and illnesses, it made some of the younger kids step up. And I don't think without having that, those younger kids would have not been put in those situations so early. So going into this year, we've got those kids that are back as returners as sophomores, like seasoned and ready for big minutes, big time plays against big teams. Because during that stretch last year where we had illness after illness and the flu went through us and injuries and all that was during the heart of conference play last year.
January.
Yeah. So we're we threw a bunch of different people, and I think the biggest person that came out of that is Kayla Wilson. As a freshman, we knew that she was going to be big for us, but it was kind of just figuring out where she fit in last year. And when all those kids went out, she's the one that stepped up big, and I think that that's going to help her leading into this year, is that she's got those games under her belt that she led the team, and so we're looking for her to play a pretty decently big role this year.
From a team standpoint, what are the expectations with having so many returners and contributors and starters on this roster from just the word go?
Yeah, so I think this is the most veteran team that we've had for a while in means of not graduating that many and bringing back most of our leading scorers. So we're looking to build that chemistry right away. Obviously, there's new faces that we're trying to plug into the mix as far as more depth. I think that's the biggest thing that we've been struggling with is the depth of our roster and being able to play a few more people at different positions. So, from the tip this year, I'm just looking for us to come in already having some of that chemistry with those, starting 5, top 6, first sub off the bench, and not really dropping off any. And then I have a very strong, idea that these new kids, once a month into season, they're going to be within that mix as well. I think we've got a lot of people that can give us good, solid minutes this year, which is going to give a little relief off of some of our starting 5.
You know what's nice, too, is the CAC schedule. It doesn't start around Thanksgiving. It starts in the new year. And I remember you telling me last year, when you're in the second semester as a first-year basketball player, you should be operating like a sophomore.
Yes.
Being in the program for however many weeks, November, December, half of October, whatever. In terms of those newcomers, what has you excited about that group? And what can you tell me about the newcomers?
I think the exciting thing about the newcomers is that we've kind of filled a role of each of the positions that we were kind of lacking last year. So we brought in, a point guard, we brought in a 3 guard, we brought in some post players. So we've kind of filled those voids that we had last year, and with the loss of Pinkrow, we brought in a freshman that can fill that bigger role in Drew Dunathan. And we brought in Anai Allen, who is a point guard, and she is a court vision point guard, which is something that we want to progress to, and obviously not have the ball in Diggs' hands as often as it was last year. And with shooters like Megan Kelly and Victoria Diggs, Anai Allen, I think by the time January hits, is going to be able to have the ball in her hands, and there's going to be a lot of options that open up for our shooters as well. And then our bigs in Anna Reese and Jada Holland, those two, we need more size and depth in help for Amanda and Sydney. And they're coming along. Both of them, if they continue to work hard, like you said that I said last year, by the time conference hits in January, they're sophomores. And they've got to know everything that the upperclassmen know. And the 2 other newcomers are Desiree Shepard and Tatiana Gibson, and both of those bring something to the table. Des is a fantastic shooter, really, really good shooter. And Tatiana works extremely hard every single possession, and she's pretty coachable, and she wants to learn and get better. So, with the progression of all those newcomers and what we have returning, I think we can kind of find a really good mix.
Well, shame on me. We're almost 6 minutes in, and I haven't asked you about Victoria Diggs. I want to go there. All CAC first team, leading scorer in the conference. Better last year than the year before, where she was the conference's Rookie of the Year in every statistical category. What are you expecting from her this season?
You know, I'm expecting Victoria Diggs to be Diggs. You know, she's the type of kid that doesn't get flustered, and that's what makes her successful. You can kind of throw anything at her, and she's still the same kid. No matter if we're up by 20, down by 20, she's still competing. She's still working hard, and you know, when she's in practice, she's consistent. And so that's kind of just what we're looking for her to do. I think the biggest thing is, you know, she's always been that go-to player for us. But I think we're trying to develop just more support around her, that she's not having to do it all. And, you know, not that she can't, but there's certain games where I think we're going to have multiple people stepping up and scoring in the double digits this year, which is really exciting. But Diggs is a great floor leader because she just works hard. She might not be as vocal as we want her to be, but she's always doing what she can to help the team win.
Everyone in the conference knows her name and knows that what they have to do when she rolls into your gym. I want to switch to the front court with Stotler and Emery. Sydney Stotler and Amanda Emery, they combined for 74 starts between their first two seasons here at Frostburg. What do you expect from those two here in year 3 as really potentially 3-year starters now?
You know, when they first got here, you know, they had the challenge of being thrown into college basketball immediately, which is, I think, the best thing that could have happened for them. One, they have unbelievable chemistry together. They work really well together, but they both bring two completely separate things to the table. Sydney is a really, really great defender. She gets her hands on everything. She can block shots, but she's also just that, like, calming force on the defensive side of the floor. You know that she's going to come up with some big stops, some big plays when we need it. And she's definitely got that IQ. Amanda this year has come in as an offensive force. She has worked extremely hard. I think this is the best that she's looked in the preseason, and she has been adapting new things that we've been trying to get her to do on the offensive side of the floor. And obviously she can play defense as well, and Sid can play offense, but I think that both of them have their strong suits. And I think Sydney's is on the defensive side of the floor, and Amanda is really, really coming into her own offensively. And so that's a really exciting thing to see, especially, you know, they're juniors. And so they're kind of coming into their own name and making a name for themselves, that they can score and that they can help us out. And I think that showed towards the end of last year. We worked really hard on our post-entry and high-low game, and they developed even more chemistry with each other. So, yeah, I mean, it was really great to see them come back hungry and ready, and I think you'll see a big year out of both of them.
Yeah, two experienced complementary bigs leading the way in the front court. Experience in the back court as well with senior guards Megan Kelly and Jasmine Tirado-Viscala. Kelly, of course, a three-point shooter. Tirado-Viscala, a distributor. How have they looked early in the preseason, and what kind of leadership can they provide this year?
Yeah, Megan has come back to life a little, is kind of what I say. She is playing like a fearless senior. Like, this is the last year that she's had in the preseason. And she's shooting the ball well, but she's also controlling the offense. It's a new offensive system for us, and she's become, you know, a vocal leader within that offense. But she's also becoming more versatile, so she's not just relying on her three. She's really forced herself to get in the paint and get her floater up, or get in the paint and distribute. So I'm excited for her progress, you know, for this last preseason and her last season. Jasmine is doing a really, really great job seeing the floor, distributing the ball. The biggest things that Jasmine gives us is her court vision and her defense. And for those two things, if she wants to lock down on the defensive side of the floor, she can lock down anyone. And on the offensive side of the floor, if she gets going and gets into our system and gets into our flow, she can make some really, really great passes. So I'm really excited. Those are my first 2 recruits when I got here. So it's kind of I can't believe that they're seniors already, but I'm really excited to watch them in their senior year because they've just given so much to this program and this transformation of this program. So I'm excited. I'm excited for their senior year.
Well, what are the strengths and weaknesses of your team as you see your squad now?
Well, we can score. We figured that out in our first scrimmage, which, with our shooters, and that's not surprising. I think the biggest thing is we've got to be able to defend and defend well. And that's always been something that I have stressed as a coach, is you've got to be able to defend. It doesn't matter how many points you put up if you can't defend, because they're just going to score right back on us. And we have more athleticism this year. We have more size, and we've got to be able to defend all aspects of the game, whether that be transition or in the half court, in the paint. So we've really got to hone in on the defensive side of the floor. But then also we just have to stay within us, stay within our system. Sometimes we get out of that too quickly, and that's again growing pains within the preseason. But I'm happy with where we are right now. We have a tough road in November, but I'm happy with where we are in the preseason right now, heading into our first non-conference game. So, time will tell. But we've been working hard, and I'm proud of them so far in these last 4 weeks.
Speaking of that non-conference schedule, 10 non-conference games before you reach the opener against Mary Washington on January 2nd. What are you hoping to accomplish in November and December in that part of your schedule?
The schedule is obviously set up a little differently this year with the changes in the conference and not starting conference until after Christmas. But I think the biggest thing that I want to see within our team is proving ourselves, because you can still prove yourself without hitting conference yet. Our out-of-conference schedule is not easy by any means. We're playing some really great teams, especially when we go to this Marietta tournament over Thanksgiving. We're playing some top competition, and it's going to set us up and prepare us for the CAC, but that doesn't mean that you take any of these teams lightly. So I'm excited for our schedule. It's a lot of games in a short amount of time, just with this Christmas and finals break. But I think we're well prepared, and it's going to definitely prepare us for January.
Short-term goals to begin the season: Tuesday at Lebanon Valley, and then the Jim Crawley Classic in the first weekends, CCNY and Mount Aloysius. What are you looking for from your team?
Of course, to go 3-0. I mean, number one, you always got to have that goal to win. But I think the biggest thing is just seeing what we've implemented, seeing what we've worked so hard for leading up. It's a long month. It's a long month for the players, and it's a long month for the coaching staff. Everyone's competitive. We want to play against someone else. We want to get we've played against each other for long enough. So, this first week with Leb Valley and then our Jim Crawley Classic, I just want to see us go out and produce what we've been working on and have fun. I think if we do those things, then we're going to end up 3-0. But if we get tight and if we go away from what we know and what we've been working on, then it could be rough. But at the end of the day, we know what we have to do. You stay together as a team, you encourage each other, and you go out and you compete. And that's the biggest thing is if we compete, no one can stop us. I always talk about how we're preventing ourselves from getting to where we want to be. It's no one else. So we've just got to keep working hard in these last few practices leading up to it and just be ready. Everyone's just got to be ready for whatever role that they need, and it might be different each game, but they've got to accept it, and we've got to come together as a team and end up 3-0.
Well, we're fired up. Women's basketball will be hosting the Jim Crawley Classic Saturday and Sunday this coming week. Coach Carrie Saunders, thank you for joining us this week, and we're looking forward to this whole season.
Thank you.